Character deaths can often be pretty traumatic to players who have invested a significant amount of time into them in any TTRPG, so let's discuss who was your first character to actually die in a TTRPG, could be any single one of them, and how did you react to it? Leave yours down in the comments below. But first, our sponsor, Archvillain Games, with their upcoming Kickstarter. Erevan's Guide to Death and Beyond is an upcoming 350-page tome of dark spells, unholy monsters, arcane craftable items, and undying mega bosses for D&D 5th edition. That answers one question. Can a party go on after a TPK? It's packed with plenty of new content and original mechanics like an undead grafting system, an undying ship that you can upgrade across your adventures, 8 new races, 10 mega bosses, and the profane lairs they dwell in, arcane familiars, dark subclasses, and everything you need to craft an accursed tale for your players to enjoy. Enter a world where the power of death is weakened. Watch your comrades fall, only to rise again as an undead, and embark on a campaign that takes your party from level 1 to level 10, shrouded in the horrors of a setting-agnostic story sure to grip your whole table. The Kickstarter begins on May 15th. Support the release to gain access to rewards like a free Liquid Core Soul River D20, superb discounts off the final release, highly detailed original miniatures, and more. Links are in the description below. My first character was Conrad, a wood elf fighter who belonged to the Church of Bane. Since this was my first time playing, I had no idea about the Cult of the Dead 3. I thought Bane was just like any other war god. This was not helped by the fact that we were playing Descent into Avernus. Once the party, a high elf cleric of Soon, a human warlock, a gnome artificer, 2 ASMR paladins, and the most evil high elf to ever walk the Sword Coast, got the job to investigate the Cult of the Dead 3. I heard the name of my god. I excitedly pointed out that I was an acolyte of one of these gods. The DM asked DM if I was wearing the vestments of the church. To I said, yeah, why wouldn't I? Well, the DM had me roll for religion, nat 20, then explained the horrible things the Church of Bane did. I decided to stay with the party since they would lead me closer to learning how I could revive my god. During one encounter, the cleric saw that I was purposely missing all the shots I took with my longbow. He confronted me about this while the rest of the party were fighting in melee. We discussed this for a bit and he learned that I was a spy. He said he would still let me stay in the party, but he said, "Promise me you won't betray us at the last moment." And I agreed. Later on, we were fighting Baneites again, and I was hesitating. For the first time, Conrad heard the voice of Bane speak to him directly. He said, "Hesitation is for the weak." At this point, I saw an opportunity. Since this was not the last moment, I wouldn't be breaking my promise to the cleric. Conrad was positioned at one end of a hallway, with a Baneite in the middle and the evil elf at the other end. I started shooting at the evil elf and making it look like I was trying to hit the Baneite. This backfired. It was completely in character for this elf to get pissed and start attacking me. We got locked in combat, which continued even after the conveniently placed Baneite died, until I was knocked out by the cleric. I awoke in the Baneite's torture room tied to a chair. Around me, I saw most of the party finishing up a long rest, with the exception of the cleric who was happily waiting for me to wake up so he could interrogate me. "Good morning, Conrad," he said. I reached for my black hand amulet, the holy symbol of Bane. He asked, "Do you know of the sacred bond you've broken between party members?" "Like the sacred bond between cleric and deity?" "Yes." I, a little bit confused by this, said, "If it's between my party and my god, then I die either way." He responded, "We could protect you from your god." "Then my god will protect me from you." Well, initiative was rolled. We rolled very poorly, and the more aggressive martial characters were up first. Each of them skipped their turn. They didn't know much about what was happening, and they didn't want to get involved. My turn was immediately before the clerics. I knew I was going to die here, so I asked the DM if I could bless the chair before it was covered in blood once more. Bane saw my devotion and intervened. The chair gave off an ominous aura that filled everyone of good alignment with dread. The cleric recognized where this magic came from and fled the room. One of the ASMR paladins decided to land the killing blow and took Conrad's head off with a greatsword. Conrad died at home in his favorite chair. I never thought my first character would have such a cool death, and I strongly doubt any other character I play will be able to make a story nearly as good as Conrad's. My first character was a shifter monk. I can't remember his name, unfortunately. This was a one-shot, and in the first ever round of combat, he gets one-shotted by an arrow. I was a bit salty, but everyone had a good laugh. My first character was a blue dragonborn paladin named Balasor. I don't remember how I wanted to play him. My party TPK'd on the first encounter because our DM underestimated the power of zombies. I DM'd the campaign, but I consider this character partially mine as the player and I really worked on him together. He was in an arena fight, 1v1, everyone had an opponent, and I ended up having 7 nat 20s in the course of the fight. The player had a dice curse for a while and rolled nat 1 and a nat 2 on his death saves. He was reincarnated as a half-orc, half-bugbear, but later on married the barbarian who killed him. It was honestly one of the funniest things to happen in that campaign. Level 2, Fire Genasi Bard. Secretly a doppelganger, in Rime of the Frost Maiden. They were sliced in half by an angry Verbeg after she found out we had killed her mate. I had used my last spell slot on Dissonant Whispers instead of keeping a healing word handy as I thought I could get it to run away, giving us the chance to flee. But my save was low, and it passed. It crit the attack roll on me and bisected me. On the chance this does make it into a video, which it did, this is actually a continuation of a story I shared that was in one of MrRipper's ones. This story about the party who managed to free themselves of being terrorists by teaching the police about the multiverse theory. I had an ASMR paladin, Jupiter, the paladin of vengeance. My party had just managed to convince the police force that we were not terrorists. We were, of course. However, the police station was shortly attacked by some robots, which I believe were tracking us. I don't really remember or know. My character was able to break out of their cell easily. We had not yet been let out of our jail cells, but was still unarmed. He was also already at half health and out of healing. Well, nevertheless, he fought activating his Radiant Soul ability so he could do some damage. He was pretty badly banged up, though. We were able to take down the robots using electric spells to short-circuit them. My character went back into his cell as a show of good faith. However, we realized our mistake. We had forgotten to double-tap one of the robots, which rebooted and attacked the captain of the police. My character leapt into action, grappling the robot to the ground. However, with 15 health remaining and 11 AC without armor, it was game over, baby. The first attack was a crit, instantly downing. The robot's next 2 attacks struck hard, leaving it all up to the death save. Well, I failed it, and Jupiter was crushed into a fine powder. He died nobly. And it was the final piece of evidence, wink wink, the police needed to release us. Unfortunately, the captain of the police who I saved turned out to be not a great guy. After my new character joined, we got stuck in the Feywild for a bit. A few months of time outside the Feywild. And this captain of police took the opportunity to establish military rule and make one of our biggest allies just disappear and further oppress the people that we were working hard to free. He also started researching the multiverse, as one of the things we did to convince him that we were not criminals was teach him multiverse theory, which would be a huge problem for us. Unfortunately, we never got to see the end of that campaign, but it was wild. In my first game, I played a paladin dwarf who was obsessed with destroying any source of evil. Good man! My older brother, who happened to be the DM, had a DM PC who was rumored to be a demon-worshipping cultist. So, naturally, my lawful good paladin, who has sworn to destroy demons and their worshippers, attacked. Now, would I do this nowadays? Absolutely not, at least intentionally, of course. I would never make another character who would go after someone like that immediately. But back then, I was an airheaded newbie. I rolled a crit and max damage, and my brother was not about that. On his turn, the DMPC broke both my character's legs, then basically hypnotized my character to not be able to attack him ever again for any reason later on. During the first actual combat, my character went down because he had broken legs and couldn't move, so the enemies just focused fire on him, and he went down almost immediately. My older brother's DMPC then came and finished my character off. Needless to say, that game never went past the first session, and it would be years before I try to play D&D again. Luckily, it went better than the first time. My first character was Dr. Graham Luthen, a variant human chronergy wizard. He was the result of the DM, his brother, and I all bouncing ideas back and forth on the way home from the local spring. I could only be here half the time, so we came up with the idea that he was a time traveler due to a spell gone wrong in Iowa 2,000 years ago, and that through his drift through time, he had witnessed a great many things. But his mind slowly cracked and fell apart as time went on. Now, we get to the present, where it's the apocalypse and the sun hasn't risen in months. That's not good. Graham and the party had just slain a great enemy who commanded an army of gnolls. When we were searching further within the inner chamber and his throne, Graham and one other member of the party discovered a ring. A ring of wish. Graham, dead set on causing the downfall of the gods due to what they did to Eeyore in the Calamity, grabbed the ring, but held on to his last bits of sanity to not make a rash decision. The other party member tried to take the ring, but Graham went full Gollum and threatened to use it. My precious! After a while, the party, after much debate, let Graham keep the ring, more out of fear than anything else. They got back to the remains of Palebank, where the refugees of the apocalypse the big bad evil guy caused were hiding. But the big bad evil guy and her army, the size of which blotted out the horizon, were waiting to strike, toying with us. The party and the leaders of the refugees argued for a while until Graham decided to head outside to find Dr. Fear, the father of the big bad, who wanted nothing more than to have his daughter back. Graham and Fear spoke for a while about life and final affairs when the doctor had an idea. The Dire Doliac, a massive mobile base, think like the Dune Crawlers in Star Wars, was broken down on the outskirts of the town. The thing had a reactor that could likely be set to explode on a timer, an explosion with the explosive power of the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. All they needed to do is to set the timer and sneak away so that the explosion would kill the big bad and her army of thousands. The two set off to inform the others of their plan, but the siege on Palebank had just begun. Before getting separated, the doctor mentioned that using Wish could also detonate the bomb if need be. Amidst the chaos, an airship arrived to help get the refugees out of harm's way. Most of the party fought their way onto the airship while our monk, Dr. Fear, and Graham weren't anywhere to be found. Graham, after tearing through the town on the way to the Dire Doliac, was found by our monk. After the plan was explained to him, he was going to help when Graham took off his wedding ring and handed it to the monk. Get this to her, please. And I'm sorry. He shoved the monk away and cast Dimension Door to get inside the now surrounded Dire Doliac. The monk gazed towards the massive structure and uttered, "Godspeed, Graham," and ran towards the airship. Once inside, Graham found Dr. Fear frantically preparing and repairing things within the reactor chamber for detonation. Graham proceeded to get to work as well. Meanwhile, the others all boarded the airship and were panicking. Manix, the monk, didn't tell the others where Graham was, though everyone had already heard the plan by now and knew they were to stay within Dimension Door range so both doctors could safely make it aboard. The door in the reactor chamber was being slammed against again and again by a flood of feral creatures, undead and otherwise, that wanted to end the lives of both inside. Well, eventually, Graham turns to the doc, knowing damn well what he has to do. What has to be done. As long as we're in here, they won't leave the city. They'll all be swarming Ground Zero when we set this off if we stay here. Doc, you know we would. Graham was interrupted. I don't know what you're talking about, said Fear as he continued to frantically work away at destabilizing the reactor. Insight check. The doc is simply lying to himself so he doesn't need to think about the end. I noticed the doc has a sending stone and is communicating with the leader of the airship. I take it from him and speak to her. Apparently, the entire party and many refugees were eagerly listening to every word. Hey, guys. You need to get out of here. You're getting shot at. I can hear it from all the way in here. It's not good. That thing isn't made to sustain heavy fire, so just go. It'll be okay. The party began to panic, begging us to leave, trying to assure us that there must be another way. I hand Doc the stone and he says his goodbyes. I take it myself and speak once more. Goodbye. And Godspeed, my dear friends. Then I smashed the stone on the ground and turned to the doc. It's been a pleasure, Doc. Likewise, Graham. I held the ring up to my lips and said, I wish for the sun to rise again. That was the last time I ever spoke as Graham. Back aboard the airship, they sped away from the city and high into the sky. Looking back, they witnessed a blue and gray mushroom cloud rise where the city once stood as it was leveled. The invading army turned to ash. A beam of prismatic light shot up shortly after the shockwave reached the airship, shaking it with the force of an earthquake. The party then realized that, for the first time in months, the warm, bright sun was peeking out from the horizon. There was dead silence. The day had been won. They were safe and warm once again. Then a roar of inhuman rage echoed from the rubble. The big, bad, evil guy had lived, the result of the possession by whatever entity we were up against. The DM looked at me and said, You took 1.8 million damage. And so did she. The following session was the finale, and the party faced the now incredibly weakened but pissed big bad evil guy. They won, but at the cost of 2 other party members. Hey everybody, Brian Vaughn VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and let us know in the comments below. Who was your first character to die in a TTRPG, and how did you react to it? We love you all. See you next time. Bye for now.